3 out of 10, like that's what? 20s, it's almost 30%. So I think we did pretty good. Wait, is it? Oh my God, that is 30%. I don't know maths. It is, isn't it? 3 out of 10, 30%. In my head, I was thinking that for some reason, 3 out of 10 is not 30%. I got a degree in film, so yeah. Hey guys, my name's Angus, and today we're going to be going through my reading stats and wrap up for May and drawing out my TBR for June 2021. So yes, I did get a haircut, and yes, my hair is very short and I'm not sure how I feel about it. So I'm hoping it grows back very quickly. The next video I post after this one, I filmed before this one. So I'm gonna have long hair again. I'm gonna go from like the shortest my hair's been in a long time to the longest my hair's been in a long time, backwards. So that'll be fun. But anyway, we've got a lot to get through. I can't believe it's this time of the month again already. I feel like I just finished the last one of these videos and then I have to start planning the next one. It's just so much. It's like a whole job. It's a whole job getting these ready. So you know what we're gonna be doing. So we're just gonna get into it. I'm gonna start with my stats for May 2021. So I read 10 books in May and a total of 3,384 pages, which is better than last month. And it brings my total for the year to 47 books and 17,444 pages, which means I'm now 5 books ahead of my reading goal. I don't know how I'm doing this. Like last year I read 49 books over the whole year. So I guess whatever I'm doing, I just need to keep doing. It seems to be working. In April, I read 9 fiction books and 1 non-fiction book, which is good. It's standard. I would have liked to have read another non-fiction book just to get it to like 20%, but I guess 1 is better than none. Compared to last month, obviously we're down by like 10-ish%. It's really hard to read more than 1 non-fiction book for me, I'm finding. I just have so many great fiction books that I want to read. I'm struggling to fit non-fiction into that. That being said, the non-fiction book I read this month was a really fantastic true crime book, but we'll get into that later. My average star rating for April was 3.85 stars, which is like very similar to last month. I read 2 rather average books. Well, one was actually pretty bad, and then a bunch of really decent books. I mean, like 7 books were between 4 and 5 stars, which is pretty excellent. So compared to last month, a bit more variance, but quite similar really. Only like a 0.04 star difference between the 2 months. And yeah, both months I read 2 average to bad books, and the rest were really quite good. That seems to be my standard. I'd love to be able to read only 4 and 5 star books every month, but it seems I'm always going to make some bad judgment and read at least 2 bad books. In terms of genre this month, one of my reading prompts I drew out was to read 30% middle fiction, and we did it. I, being terrible at maths, didn't realize this until halfway through filming this video. I don't know what I was thinking. I'm sure you saw at the start of this video, but yeah, 3 out of 10 is in fact 30%, contrary to my popular belief, apparently. Other than that, I read 15% both thriller and mystery, and then 10% young adult horror, fantasy, and true crime. Things seem to split up very nicely when you read 10 books, so that's nice. Compared to last month, obviously my reading prompt shifted things down a bit, but if you ignore that, it's the same base genres that are making up this graph every month. Always thriller, mystery, horror, young adult, and usually a small fantasy percentage too. So I guess that's my reading taste in its most basic form. In terms of page count, this is quite embarrassing. These graphs are so boring this month. Everything I read was between 300 and 499 pages, so yeah, not much to look at here. I really need some good longer books to sink my teeth into. So if you have any suggestions of some good longer thriller or horror books, please let me know, because I'm in the mood for a doorstop sized book to get stuck into. I mean, the majority of my books always seem to sit in the middle, as you can see, comparing to last month, but that's typical of publishing anyway. Most books are 300 to 500 pages. Last month I read a few more outliers, which was nice, but I don't think it's too much of a concern. Looking at my reading moods for this month, I read 27% mysterious, 24% dark, 18% tense, 13% adventurous, 10% emotional, and 8% challenging. And compared to last month, a bit of a shift. Reflective was my biggest mood last month, probably due to the 2 non-fiction books that I read. I hate the mood emotional. What exactly is that supposed to refer to? Like, books can evoke different emotional responses in different people, so I don't think that should be considered like a reading mood. But anyway, I'm just doing what Storygraph tells me to, so yeah. And finally, my monthly reading habits graph. As you can see, I read 10 books, which is more than last month, only by 1. I read more books this month, but less pages, which is, of course, because I didn't read anything over 500 pages. This graph is looking suspiciously steady, so maybe I need to schedule a bad reading month just to shake things up and bring some drama to this. But yeah, things are going good. Hopefully they stay good. I'm well on track to like read more than 100 books this year, which is amazing. Alrighty, so those are my reading stats for May 2021. Now I'm going to wrap up everything that I read last month. So the first book that I read last month was The House on the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. I mistakenly said that this was a middle fiction book in my last video. I was rightfully corrected on that by you guys in the comments, so thank you for letting me know. This is actually like a queer adult fantasy novel. But the cover is so misleading. I think that's why I thought it was middle fiction, but it is an adult fiction novel. It's weird because this reads and feels like a middle fiction novel, but it's not, just the way it's written. It's actually very clever. So this book follows Linus, who lives a very boring life. He works as a caseworker for the department in charge of magical youth until one day he's summoned by extremely upper management to work on a super secret case involving an orphanage on an island that hosts like 5 supposedly dangerous children and the Antichrist. So that's fun. But of course, naturally he gets there and things aren't what they seem. And we go on a magical, fun, queer adventure. This was like my ultimate guilty pleasure in a book. Like, it's like Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, but 10 times better meets like, I don't even know, but like different. It warmed my heart and it actually made me feel really lonely having no one in my life. So yeah, that was sad, but you know, it was cool. Kind of invigorated me a little bit. So yeah. Hey guys, I just wanted to pop in quickly and clear up some stuff about this book that's come to my attention since I filmed this video. The short of it is, in an interview, TJ Klune revealed how elements of this book directly mirrored the forced removal of Indigenous children into residential homes by the Canadian government. I don't ever want to speak over the voices of Indigenous creators on this platform, so I'm going to link some resources I found useful in the description that hopefully you guys will find useful if you don't know anything about this issue. I just wanted to make you guys aware because I just think it's important to understand the situation around a book when you're reading it. Yeah, if you don't already know about the situation, check out the description. There's some resources there that will help you learn more. The next book that I read was Every Value Break by Peter Swanson. Oh man, you guys warned me about this, and by the time I saw the comments of people saying don't read this, read Peter Swanson's other books first, it was too late. I'd read it. So I read this coming off the back of his previous book before this, 8 Perfect Murders, which I loved, and this for me was such a letdown. I think I gave this like 2.5 stars. This feels like a Lucy Foley-esque, super trashy thriller novel written like 5-6 years ago. Like, I feel like this is the kind of story that was selling 5 or 6 years ago. I don't know why Peter Swanson wrote this now. Anyway, I was super disappointed, as you can tell. I think I gave this like 2.5 stars, or like 2, I can't remember. A low rating. It pretty much follows this bride on her honeymoon with her super rich new husband. They go on like a fancy private island, and when she gets there, this like man she had a one-night stand with on her hen's night shows up, and he's like following her around, and it's super paranoia fueled. But I just feel like I've read this story before a lot of different times in a lot of different forms. It was like twisty, I guess, but I figured out the whole plot in like the first 50 to 100 pages. Like, nothing really surprised me. So yeah, super disappointed. Wouldn't recommend. I'm interested to read his other books still though, because I've heard, I think it's The Kind Worth Killing is his best. So I'm going to be reading that one next, I think. All right, so now let's talk about the most aggravating book that I read this year. Final Girls by Riley Sager. What an absolute infuriating book. I bought this secondhand, that's why it's like super ripped. I didn't do this out of frustration, although I would have liked to. It came like this, rightfully so, I feel. I'm so glad I bought this secondhand and I didn't pay full price for this because I really didn't like this one. This felt like a really poorly written, trashy YA novel where all the characters are like 15, 16. That's how they read to me, and I hated that because they're supposed to be adults. This book follows Quincy, who's like the only survivor of like a horror movie scale massacre. So she's called like a final girl, you know, like in horror movies, like the only girl that survives the massacre is like the final girl. Well, that's kind of the premise for this book. There's 3 of them and they're all like famous, I guess. But then one day, one of them appears to have committed suicide, and then the other one appears on Quincy's doorstep wanting to like chat after being like off the grid for years. So that's the setup. Stuff happens, but I'll tell you what, this was a waste of my time. The narrative style was not for me. It just felt very trashy and cheesy, and I think I gave this like 1.5 stars. So I wouldn't recommend this. Very, very, very annoyed at this book. I can't believe I actually bought a copy. I wish I did at all. Okay, the next book that I read was Misery by Stephen King. I don't know why, I've just suddenly gotten into collecting these like beaten up old mass market books. I've been finding them secondhand. It's actually really fun. I really enjoy it. I've never read any of his books, so I thought I should start here, considering he has like some 60 odd books. And I think this was actually a great place to start for me. If you don't know, Misery follows this famous author who's been kidnapped and held hostage by his like #1 fan, Annie Wilkes, and she's like forcing him to write a new book for her. But at the same time, she's like gaslight, gatekeeping, and girl bossing his ass. extreme. She's like put him in a wheelchair. I didn't realize how gruesome this book was going to be. It's like 10 times worse than the movie in terms of like ickiness. Just be aware of that. It is like a horror book, but very well done. If you haven't read any Stephen King, I think this is a great place to start. Who am I to say though? I haven't read any of his other books. From here I'll probably go into like Carrie or something. We'll see, but yeah, I loved it. The next book that I read was She's Too Pretty to Burn by Wendy Hurd, and wow, I was really impressed with this book. Starting off I was a bit unsure with this book, but it really impressed me. I think it's important to know that this is like a spin-off, or like it's riffing off Picture of Dorian Gray, but sapphic teens, murder. Yeah, it's good. It's really good. I think it's good to go into this not knowing much of what it's about, because things kind of tie together really well. Sapphic love story on the backdrop of like rebel art in America and crime. That's all the clues I want to give you. But yeah, I think I gave this one 4 stars. I was really impressed, and I definitely want to read more of her books. And the cover is fabulous. Yeah. Okay, next up we have The Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman. It's another crime, I wouldn't say thriller, it's more of a cozy crime book. Follows a bunch of retirees in a retirement home. They meet up every Thursday to solve unsolved like historic cases, which is a really fun setup. But then one day they have like a real murder case on their hands that occurred in the retirement home. It's really fun. There's some really funny elements to this. I had a really fun time reading this. My only real gripe is that the actual murder mystery is like 3 in 1, and it's quite confusing. The ending is quite confusing to get your head around. Like, we're tying up all these loose ends with such a big cast of characters, and it's a lot to kind of map out in your head. So it's a cozy crime read, but there is a lot of work that you need to do towards the end. I think I gave this 3.5 stars. It's gonna make a great film. I'm pretty sure Steven Spielberg has the rights. I'm sure he'll knock this one out of the park with like an all-star cast of like old famous people, and you can see it, I can see it. It's gonna be great. So, alrighty, and then I read 3 middle fiction books, because last month I drew out of my reading prompt jar a prompt where I had to read at least 30% middle fiction. So we almost got there. Like it's quite close. 3 out of 10, like that's what, 20s, that's almost 30%. So I think we did pretty good. Wait, is it? Oh my god, that is 30%. I don't know maths. That is, isn't it? 3 out of 10, 30%. Okay, we did do it. Wow. In my head I was thinking that for some reason 3 out of 10 is not 30%. It's been a long time since I did maths, considering I got a degree in film, so yeah. I read these 3. They were all really excellent. The first one that I read was Malamander by Thomas Taylor. This is like a fun fantasy monster legend quest. 2 kids trying to uncover the secret of the Malamander. In like this really cool like boat pier town misty thingy. I don't know what to call it, but yeah, this would make an excellent film. Really fun, really great cast of characters, and it felt very magical. There's like this place in this book called the Erie Book Dispensary, where you go in there and this like sea monkey gives you a book recommendation based off it like reading your mind. It's really fun. I can see this being like a really fun fantasy family film. So yeah, if no one's bought the rights, maybe I will, with my 0 money in the bank. Then I read The Graveyard Riddle by Lisa Thompson. This is actually a sequel, or like a spin-off novel from Goldfish Boy. Same characters, but different story. And I haven't read Goldfish Boy. Rookie mistake, I will be doing that. This is a much more down-to-earth contemporary middle fiction book, dealing with a lot of like real-world issues in like a fun, really heartwarming way, with some really beautiful characters. I loved all of the main characters in this book. They were so good. It's about Melody, who discovers a boy hiding in a graveyard who claims to be working for like MI8 and needs help on a case, but obviously that's not true. So there's a lot of social issues with this homeless boy, dealt with in a really accessible way for kids. I just think this is a great book for kids and adults too. I know a few adults who have read this and enjoyed it too. So 4 stars, and I gave Malamander 4 stars too. And then the third one I read was The London Eye Mystery by Siobhan Dowd. This was fantastic. It's another mystery novel involving a kid who goes missing after he gets onto the London Eye, and then he never gets off. We're part of the family and we're trying to find out what happened to him. It's a very masterfully crafted mystery, like better than a lot of adult books I've read, so that's saying something. Siobhan Dowd sadly passed away not long after this book came out. I didn't realize this is actually the same Siobhan who worked on A Monster Calls with Patrick Ness, which is another one of my all-time favorite books, so makes sense. Really great recommendation for kids. It's also like a really good like 101 mystery writing lesson for anyone. Just like all the clues are laid out for you really well, like nothing is missed. It's not one of those books where the vital clue is missing and there's no way you could have solved it by the end. Everything's there, just in such a clever way that you don't pick up on things until it's too late. and you haven't solved the mystery and you feel like an idiot. Really good. I give this one 4.5 stars. Okay, and then I was supposed to read Monogamy by Sue Miller, but I started it and I DNF'd this because I just could not get into this and I didn't want to like force myself to read it and hate it because I feel like there's some really good stuff going on here. It just wasn't time for me to read this, so I've kind of cheated and shelved this for later. This is just me covering my bases and telling you that I did try and read the book I drew out of my jar. I just couldn't get through it, so we tried. And the last book that I read this month was I'll Be Gone in the Dark by Michelle McNamara. This is a true crime book about the Golden State Killer who terrorized suburban California for like a decade, and it's a really, really good like dichotomy of like investigating the crimes in a really, really detailed way, but also exposing the portrait of like obsession with uncovering the truth and solving a case. Yeah, this was really good. If you are at all interested in true crime, I would highly recommend this. Really good read, a really good foundational read into like what good true crime is, because there is a lot of trashy true crime books out there. This is definitely one of the best. Sadly, Michelle McNamara also passed away before this book was published, but her team was able to put it together and publish it post-mortem for her. Yeah, I think I have this on 4.5 stars. Really, really good true crime. Really good. That was a lot of books to get through. Okay, so that's everything that I read in May. Now we're gonna get onto my TBR Reaping for June 2021. I'm sure you know, because I've been doing this for like a year now, but if you're new here and you don't know what my TBR Reaping stuff is, pretty much I have 2 jars. One has all my unread books from my bookshelf in it, and the other one has a reading prompt. I draw one out from each, and I have to fulfill the prompts for that month. So, pretty straightforward, but guaranteed to cause tantrums every single month, it seems. The jars are getting smaller, which is nice. It would be nice if I could completely get through them, but we'll see. I'll probably quit before we get there. Let's start with every book on my bookshelf jar that I haven't read. Yeah. I can't remember what color we did last month, but I'm just gonna do blue because I'm wearing blue. It seems fitting. So, okay. Oh, yes! Oh my god! You know what? I nearly put this on my TBR for this month because I've wanted to read it so bad, but now I don't have to. So the book that I drew out of my jar was Surrender Your Sons by Adam Sass. I heard so many good things about this book when it came out last year, and I bought it, but I never got around to it, so now I get to read it. Amazing. I don't know too much about this. It's like a fantasy island where no one is safe, kidnapping, exposing the camp's horrible truths. That was terrible. I don't really know too much about this, but I've heard really good things. It's like a queer thriller novel, so keen as. Really, really keen for this one. That was amazing. I'm so glad I drew that out. Okay, now let's do the other jar. Let's do a pink one this month. This one. Oh, okay. So the reading prompt I drew out of my jar is to read a scientific nonfiction book, which I don't think I've done ever in my life, so that's going to be interesting. I'm just thinking if I have any on my nonfiction shelf over there. I don't think I do. Science nonfiction I don't really ever do, so I'm gonna have to come up with something for that. I'm sure I'll be able to find something at work, but yeah, I don't have anything right now. So insert clip here of me figuring out what I'm gonna read. Hello, I'm back again from the future to confirm what book I'm gonna be reading for this scientific prompt. So I struggled so much with this, but I think I've figured out what I'm going to attempt to read. Sapiens, quite a well-known popular science book about a brief history of humankind, as the subtitle says. It's supposed to condense like the complete history of the evolution of humankind into 400 pages or something, which sounds like quite a feat, so it'll be interesting. Apparently this is really digestible and easy to read, and considering I've never really read a scientific book before, I feel like this is a good place to start. So this is what I'm going to be reading for that prompt. Yeah, wish me luck. Alrighty, now that that's all done, I have a few other books that I want to read this month. Not many, and this time for real I mean not many. I know I said not many last month and I ended up listing like 12 books, so we cut it back this month. There's only like 3 or 4, 5, no, 4. I think there's only 4 books that I have left to talk about, so let's do that. Okay, so the first book I'm really dying to read this month is Everyone Dies Famous in a Small Town by Bonnie Sue Hitchcock. This is like a collection of short stories that all kind of weave together about the lives of young people from small towns from like Alaska and the American West that all kind of weave together to form like this mosaic of intricate events. There's like a really good sentence on the inside flap that sums this up. It seems as if nothing happens in these towns, but Bonnie Sue Hitchcock shows that beneath the surface, teenagers' lives blaze with fury, with secrets, and with love so strong it burns a path to the future. These stories range from like really mundane tasks like ice skating to like a runaway priest or like a wildfire and a missing persons case. I don't know, I have a guilty pleasure for small town stories about teenagers coming of age, so I think I'll really like this. Yeah, it's really short, not even 200 pages, so it'll be quick. I'm really keen. The next book I really want to read is The Night Always Comes by Willie Lawton. I don't know too much about this one. I just know it's quite dark. This is like about the failure of the American dream, I think. I think it's like a crime drama situation set over 2 days about Lynette, whose already crumbling life is threatened by something, and it puts her on a course of some dangerous activity to try and save what's left of like her little family unit. This was definitely a cover buy for me as well. This cover really drew me in. Absolutely beautiful. So that was part of the reason why I bought this, but I'm still really keen to read it. We'll see how we go. The next book I want to read is another crime thriller, and it is The Last House on Needless Street. I've heard nothing about this online. I just saw it in the bookstore and I was immediately drawn to it and read the back. Doesn't really tell you much about it, but I'm kind of keen to give it a go. The main catchline is like, you won't believe what's inside the last house on Needless Street. This is the story of a murderer, a stolen child, revenge, and the story of Ted, who lives with his daughter Lauren and his cat Olivia in an ordinary house at the end of an ordinary street. All these things are true, and yet some of them are lies. So one of those twisty crime thrillers that supposedly you won't be able to guess the ending and it will blow you away. So hopefully that's the case. Stephen King has endorsed this, although he does endorse a lot of stuff these days, so we'll see. He did also endorse Final Girls, which I hated. Yeah, that's actually not a good sign at all, but we'll see. And the last book I have on my like immediate TBR list is The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. This is like the most famous haunting house story. Oh look, it's Stephen King again, doing another blurb. He says, as nearly perfect a haunted house tale as I've ever read. So we'll see. I'm skeptical about his blurbs after Final Girls. I know the basic plot of this. It's very different to the Netflix show, completely different story. They kind of just use the concept and the title and switch things around. So I'm interested to read the book. Kind of hate this cover. These Penguin classics sometimes have awful covers. I don't know, I'd rather just like black, I think, just to like match the book. Whatever, it's fine. Alrighty, so that's pretty much my TBR plus one scientific book. I'm sure I'll read more than this, but it's nice to have a bit of freedom, so we'll see how we go. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you're reading this month. And if you've read any of the books I talked about, let me know what you thought. Yeah, I'll see you next time. Bye!